Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Man We Need to Talk, the podcast that focuses on male mental health. So today I'm joined by Dean Maden. Dean is a gym owner and a strength coach, and we're really pleased to have him on the show today. So how you doing, Dean?
I'm all good, my friend. Thank you very much. Like I said earlier, it's my little girl's birthday today, so rushing around a little bit, but we're all good.
Understandable. So, Dean, just for listeners then, give us a general overview of sort of where you're from, what you do now, so listeners can get to know you.
Yeah, so I'm 31 years of age at the moment. I do get mixed up with that sometimes. I tell people different ages. But yeah, I'm in the sport industry, and I've done lots of different things within the sport. I've found myself now into strongman, passionately, and a couple of years ago sort of like got picked up, and went down like the professional route in strongman to sort of reach the world's strongest man. I own a gym, and we recently have transformed that really to work with more strength-based people. So, I used to do a lot of more like your body composition, sort of like fat loss, weight loss, sort of targeted people. But now I've, completely moved into strength. And to be honest, strength is me, and it's about everything I want to be. I'm sure we'll touch into things, later on, but how can I put it? I've probably learned a lot of things in life, and I know that strength sort of keeps me moving forward. Is the way I'll sort of lightly touch on that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you certainly sound like a busy man. And I think one of the important things as well that I take from that is it's important to have a purpose and something to keep us busy as well, because it impacts the rest of our lives as well, doesn't it? If we've got something, a focus like for yourself, competing in strongman and stuff like that, something like that can be really helpful in terms of other aspects of your life. Don't you agree?
100%, man. And that's what I was touching to there. I think I've done a lot of different things in my life, and one thing that's always kept me personally moving forward is trying to put myself in a position that I will always come out strong, like in whatever I do. And, I'm a massive believer in sort of like self-development and everything. And to me, I'm a lion. Do you know what I mean? And it's sort of, in fact, I've got my mug here. You can see it if you're on the camera a bit, but, I love to be able to be strong. And at the end of the day, I think it's something that if you always put yourself under pressure and always ask more from yourself, you will always be stronger. And it's something that I'm not the sort of person to get put on my knees and never get back up. It's carried on to everything in my life.
Yeah, definitely. And I think in this podcast as well, we spoke a lot about in previous episodes about how that internal voice can also impact us as well. So I think it's important to have like sort of symbolism and stuff like that for yourself, like the lion and those important positive attitudes and beliefs, because the mind can also start to play a negative song out to us as well, can't we, if we're not careful? So it's good to have those positive aspects as well, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%, man. I think it's, a big part of that for me is how you spend your days, the things you do when you wake up, the touch points you have with yourself throughout the day, before you go to bed, what you do. And it's having them routines in place, isn't it? Like that's to me a huge part of, like you say, that the sort of symbolizing sort of thing, who you want to be, where you want to be, putting these things in place to equal that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think more like morning routines as well are also really good. There's the saying, isn't there? If you win the morning, you win the day or something like that. Do you have a morning routine or?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie to you and say it's perfect at the minute because, things obviously for me at the moment, I've got so many projects going on. I have come a lot off track of where my normal routine would be. But that being said, there's still parts of it that remain, and it's more than probably many would have if they don't have a routine. But no, typically for me, I like to get up and before like the kids are up properly. I've got again for the camera, I've got the bike behind me that I bought not long ago because I used to be religious on walking in the morning, so I'd always roll out of bed, go for a walk. I always imagine that all the crap from the day before is coming out the back of my head as I'm walking. Do you know what I mean? Like declutter the stuff you don't want to be remembering or whatever, however you want to look at it. But and then fill yourself with something good. So I always then listen to either a podcast or some Tony Robbins stuff, or just something that gets me fired up for the day. It could just be a song, whatever it could be. But yeah, I like to have a nice power walk in the morning, get back, and then that's obviously where the day starts. And to be honest, part of my routine is spending time with the kids in the morning, because breakfast time, family time, it's important, isn't it? And
100%. Yeah.
I think that is part of a lot of people's routine. It has to be, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's obviously having kids as well can complicate having a morning routine, because obviously kids will be kids as well. But like you say, listening to something positive and getting into that positive frame of mind, I think it's a really good way to start the day. So, so Dean, moving on then. So I just wanted to get a bit more background in sort of your upbringing. So like early school life, how you found school and stuff like that.
Yeah. To be honest, just to touch on that before I go into depth as well, I've recently, with my therapist, like really started to be vocal about this, sort of side of things. Because I think something for me is I'm slightly going off track, but I'm coming back to what you've asked me.
That's fine, don't worry.
I've got a lot of people that see me as old me, and I've got a lot of people that see me as new me. And what I mean by that is that in my head, I've got like a divide where I started to be successful and started to, I guess I will say it, respect the world. But as a youth and as growing up, I really struggled with, I guess I had friends for the wrong reasons, of me wanting to, get a street cred and try and be the hard man, because I grew up in a rough area, and it was, in my opinion, or from my experience, should I say, if you didn't swim, you'd sink. And and I mean that in a street cred sort of thing. So if I didn't fight people, if I didn't get my name out there, you would be bullied and you'd be picked on. So, from quite a young age, it was quite when I look back now, and obviously now I've got children of my own, it's something I want to protect them from. And there's a lot used to go off on the streets. People used to carry knives and all sorts of things. And, I always remember some guy got stabbed in the head with a screwdriver. And do you know what I mean? When you see that sort of stuff around, and I didn't see that physically, but do you know what I mean? It's just stuff that you think, shit, I've got to get my wits about me.
Yeah, and I think it impacts you as well, doesn't it, in terms of your own development? Stuff like that's going on as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, obviously, looking back now and the stuff I've seen and the stuff I know now, I mean, man, like, it's not even worth thinking about it, let alone entertaining it. But back then, when you don't have a lot, when you're a young male especially, and people are throwing the fist around, you think, I need to do that as well. I mean, I wasn't the sort of person that was into stealing cars and stuff like that. But I just literally used to get into fights all the time. And yeah, I struggled at school because of it. I ended up getting kicked out of Burley, which was my last school, because I was fighting all the time. Do you know what I mean? Again, I had that mentality from a youth. I was quite angry. I never really channeled my energy or anger. And I just used to live like that. And that's literally the young adult that I become.
Yeah, and I think it can be one of these things where situations can build up, and that becomes part of your personality. You can become an angry person as such, can't you? Because, like you said, if it's something you're growing up around, it becomes a matter of defending yourself, doesn't it? So, and that becomes part of your personality. Anger and rage is a way to solve conflict and stuff like that. But I think as you get older and you mature, you start to realise that things like that's not the best way to resolve conflicts and stuff. But I think, like you say, as a young male, sometimes you are thrown into those situations where you have got to defend yourself, haven't you?
Yeah, no, I agree. The thing is, I mean, I'm never the sort of person to say I regret anything in life, right? We learn from things, and there's a few things that I'm sure, and there's many things to come that I'll do that I regret doing. But at the end of the day, you have to look at it as a learn. And, I don't ever regret thinking that I wish I wasn't the person I was, because, I was the sort of person that if someone looked at me funny, I'd smack them. Like, it's ridiculous. Yeah. I regret being that person now because it's not somebody that I, aspire to be. But I don't regret going through that stage, because at the end of the day, it's something that I learned a lot. I found out a lot about myself, and I guess I earned respect in different ways, if you want to put it like that. But I ended up getting kicked out of school, not being able to do my GCSEs, which now, honestly, looking back now, and I do a lot of work with children as well, like young adults and stuff. And I always say to them, look, you don't need exams, because I will prove you don't. But at the same time, you need to learn discipline, and you need to learn that you need to understand things. So at the end of the day, do you know what I mean? So when you're looking at school life and stuff, look, don't be an idiot at school, because at the end of the day, you need to learn the stuff they're teaching you. If you learn at an earlier age, you'll get on a lot better. That's sort of like what I tell my brothers, which are younger than me, and obviously, what I tell young children nowadays. I just learned the hard way, and unfortunately, because I didn't do my exams, when I then went into the army, I then had to fucking retake them, and that was quite embarrassing, because it was like, it's not something you wanted to do. I passed when I joined the army, I passed the physical, like, flying colours. They're like, yeah, you're going to be a great soldier. I went in and they're like, you've not even got 3 C's. I'm like, no. So that was another hurdle.
I can totally relate to not getting very good GCSE results, because it's something I didn't revise for at all. I just wasn't interested in it at the time, and I'd be mortified, because I've got kids myself, and I'd be mortified if they had that attitude. So it's something you've definitely got to try and teach. And I think, whilst you say that you can succeed without necessarily good GCSE results, it is important to have focus and concentration and, learn discipline as well. So I know you touched on there about when you did leave school. So what happened when you first leave school? You went to college to study sport to start with, is that right?
Yeah, so because I was literally like, going out around town drinking, and I did that at an early age. Again, I was like 15, 16. So because I started doing that, I really needed to do something. And obviously I'd left school with no GCSEs. I went into college, had to resit some exams to go into college anyway, got accepted. I then did a year, or it might have even been 2, I can't remember, of BTEC National Diploma. And, I thought that was me now. Yep, I'm back into the love of sport. I played for Derby County Football Club, like their academy, as a goalkeeper. And, obviously I got picked up. I got picked up from one of my games, a local game that I was playing, and they asked me to play for them. I played with them, but I got dropped because I wasn't tall enough. And I think it's pretty harsh, to be honest, because at the end of the day, there's plenty of goalkeepers that are really good that aren't tall. But anyway, it was another negative stunt of my growth at that point of my life. So it was something else that sort of set me back. Once I tried to make something of it, because it could have been something that I could have pursued. So then I went into college and I did a year, but I didn't fall in love with wanting to do that, because obviously now I'm a coach, I'm a mentor, I'm a business owner, but at that age you see sport in a different way, don't you? Like, I used to think going to college to do sport was me becoming a professional footballer. Do you know what I mean? It was weird. It was like, but actually I was doing a coaching course, but because your mind is so young at that point, I didn't see that sort of development. Now, had I have been brought up different, maybe I would have. Do you know what I mean? But these are the things you just have to puzzle together later on in life, aren't they?
Oh yeah, most definitely. And I think it's one of those things where you have to also decide what you want to get from something as well. And at the time, like you say, when you're young, sometimes you can fall into these ideas of what you're going to be. And then when you don't achieve that, it's almost you get knocked back a bit. You don't really see the longer term game as much that you do when you get older, do you? So, so you also mentioned about how you ended up going into the army as well. So let's talk about how we got from studying at the sports college and then eventually getting into the army. Was there a point where you were like, look, this is not working for me, so I need to try something new, or how did that come about, Dean?
Yeah, so my cousin was in the army. He was really like switched on, successful, went into the army, did a great stint in the army, and I always looked up to him and thought, do you know what I mean? He was just, he was older than me anyway, but I just always looked up to him. He was always ahead of me, and I thought, he's switched on guy. And, he always used to talk to me about it. And then one of my best mates, Sean, he went in the army. And then I started to think, you know what, I'm gonna look at something, because I'd done football, I'd done boxing, I've never really got into rugby. I used to sprint when I was young as well. And I always used to do aggressive sports. And it was because I needed that. If I was to coach myself now, I would be world's strongest man already. Do you know what I mean? It's crazy when you think, isn't it? And we know we can't live a life twice, otherwise we would, wouldn't we? But looking at what I needed now, like then, I would have known what the answer was. But I needed something aggressive, and this was why I thought the army. I mean, I will hold my hands up and say, when I first walked in the careers office, I wanted to kill people was my answer, and that's the wrong answer. Like that, although that's what you're doing, and that's the buzz that people have, that is not the right thing to say, obviously. but the thing is, as a youth, you go, they're going to go to war, they're going to fight for the country, and you think that is what I want to do. But actually, what I needed and what I knew I needed at the time was discipline and respect and everything else. So actually, I went in there and I was, I went in there the right attitude. And yeah, like I say, I went through like a 3-day selection, like completely ran through that like the wind, and then they then obviously went through my results and stuff for GCSEs, and I had to resit them. To be fair, like I struggled to get in the army at the start because I had to go in and out the place for like 6 months to prove that I wanted to be in the army, because I had I think it was an ABH on my record.
Okay.
So already the army said no to me, and I was like, look, there's got to be a way around it. Like, I want to change my life. I want to do something. My parents went in and spoke to them, and obviously they are down to earth people, especially the guys that are in the careers offices. They're quite straight people. But yeah, and he said, look, just keep coming in and talking to me, and I want to speak to you because he's seen something in me. And then in the end, he was able to bypass that criminal record. He says, if you show me a certain period of time. So he ended up letting me go through. He goes, but you have got to resit your exams, and if you don't pass your exams, then you won't be allowed through.
How did you find taking the exams that time? Was it something that you were able to knuckle down and get on with, or did you find it a bit of a difficult thing to get on with?
I really struggled, and the funny thing is, I failed them.
Okay.
So this is the thing. Nowadays I'm fine pen to paper and studying and everything, but it's crazy thinking back. I think we all are like it to a degree as a child, but when you resent something so much, you then just don't want to learn it.
Yeah.
And I just hated it, and it was just every time I took any form of exam, my head would just spin, and it was like an anxiety sort of thing, but I wouldn't have known it at that age. And I just really struggled, but I ended up having to go into the army. So what they did is they then sent me into the army to do them, and I ended up paying somebody else to take my exams.
Okay.
Which is crazy, but I was just determined that I would get in. I mean, obviously, luckily, as soon as you go in the army, they shave your head, right? So
yeah,
as soon as you go in, they shave your head. They sent me in for the exams. I failed them. They said, you've got one more attempt. I paid someone £50 to go in and do them for me. Obviously, we all look the same. We all got bald heads. He went in, took the exams, passed them for me, and then I was allowed in. I mean, obviously, I completely bent every rule possible, but I just wanted to,
you got to do what you got to do, though, sometimes, haven't you? Sometimes you just got to do what you got to do, I suppose, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
So once you're in the army, then you go through like the selection process, and then obviously you go through like a training. Is it a few weeks training or a few months training and stuff? How did you find that process when you first got in there? Were you buzzing to be in there, or did you know straight away that there was going to be some challenges?
To be honest, I work very well under pressure, of extreme pressures in certain things, should I say? Because obviously some things are out of control, aren't they? But no, I took to it really well, because at the end of the day, going in the army was one of the best things for me at that point. If not, I probably would have been in prison, quite simply. And the thing is, I went through there, and my inner lion, if you like, is something I always use a term of, came out, and I did what I needed to do to get through. I think there's 39 recruits that went through our training, and there was about 11 that ended up passing. And, I was one of the 11. And I also got told that I should go for special forces, really quite early into my career as well. And they prompted me to do that. And obviously that's something nice to be told. And I think it's just that mentality of, I'm very stubborn, I'm very aggressive, and I will get what I want. Do you know what I mean? And that's that. Obviously, there's certain qualities that stand out with many things that I am successful in nowadays. The army was something that suited. Business and entrepreneurial sort of life is, again, that suits, doesn't it? And again, Strongman does. So they're the things that sort of like stand out that you're definitely going to sort of like fall into. So yeah, no, it was good. And like going through the training to pass all that, like it felt amazing, man, because it was like something that I know that I wouldn't give up, because once you pass your training, you get quite close with your NCOs, and they take their hat off in a different way to you, because they sort of like go, look, you've passed it. And I spoke to a few of them, and they said that obviously they get told that they've got to get you to quit. That's it. So they've got to do whatever they've got to do to get you to go, I'm out, I'm done. You know, obviously the first couple of weeks you've seen people going, you know, handing their burying and saying that I'm done because they're missing the misses.
Yeah.
Like, when you think back, it's crazy. Like, you're 17, 18 years old and you're missing your girlfriend. Like, you know what I mean?
There's bigger things in life and longer term goals, surely. But yeah, I suppose that does happen, doesn't it, at the end of the day? But if you're someone with the qualities, you know, who's got that personal strength to get on and do something and see it through, then it's a different story, isn't it? So I know. So it sounds like it started really well then, but I know that at some point you had a few issues when you were in there. I know some you can't talk about and some you can. So did you break your hip? You broke your hip on an exercise one day. Did that happen?
Yeah, so for me, I'd done all my everything in the army. I'd done all my courses and everything. I was going off to 5-9 Commando, which is obviously an attachment to the army, like basically to get a little bit more down and dirty with the actual job. But yeah, on an exercise once, I fractured my hip. Had to come home, and it was weird. It was like it was a weird pain. I couldn't. I'd never witnessed something like this before. It was a really excruciating pain, but it would go quite easily, and it was literally because of the stress of my body pressing down. Obviously, you've got to think all the kit you've got on exercise. It's freezing cold. You're not really nutritioned well, and yeah, it just like. But I came back. I got brought back, and went to the med center and everything. And they said I broke my hip, just as something funny for you to listen to. It's a typical female break, which was like, cheers for that. They said that they normally get it from your hips opening too much during pregnancy. So it's like, all right.
That's all you needed. That's all you needed to hear at that point.
I was already man down, and they kicked me. But yeah, no, it is what it is, and like it was a very stressful time at the time. It was definitely not what I wanted. I was, going big places and everything, at the end of the day with everything I was doing, and it was just a complete knockdown. So for me, like after sort of like, I'm sure you can puzzle it together yourself, but after coming off Civvy Street, really rebuilding myself back up, finding something that I was in love with and that I fitted with, I then just literally got chucked off the side of a building.
It must have been tough.
Yeah, but these are the times where you literally think like, is somebody after me? Just somebody, you know what I mean? And you ask yourself all sorts of questions, don't you? But no, the big thing for me there was, and again, I don't mind sharing the story because it's something that I've become open with, is, and just for the record as well, I literally came out with this probably 6 months ago. I've held this inside for 8 years, whatever it is, 9 years, 10 years. And, I've never told anybody. I literally told my therapist. And then she was like, you need to start talking. You need to start admitting this and telling people and everything, just because it'll be better for yourself. But basically the way that I left the army, I always lied about it to everyone. So I said that I broke my hip and that I got medically discharged for a year, which is true. But the reason I actually came out of the army so fast was because I was basically getting bullied, and I didn't see it as bullied at the time because you just don't, I guess. Like, but when you get injured in the army, you get put on something called BIF, so you get a tag on you, a white tag on your epaulet to say I'm injured. Now, first of all, you may as well wear a dunce hat. Do you know what I mean? It's like do you know what I mean? Like it's labeling you, and obviously in the army, it's one of them things where boys will be boys and people will stick with people, and you know what I mean? I basically got bullied by one of the NCOs, who's one of my non-commissioned officers who was in charge. And he just always used to, he could tell that I didn't want to be there. The rest of them did. And unfortunately, the same as anything in life, like some people want to be poorly, some people want to be ill, some people want light duties, and some people don't. I didn't, and I was literally in my platoon, because I got put in a different platoon. I was the only person within there that didn't want to be there. It was clear. And I was up every day. I was up early doing things, this, that, and the other, trying to exercise, trying to do things. And the rest of them were just like moping around. And it was making me feel so depressed. And he was just constantly going on at me, like, digs every day. And then just one day, I just lost my shit with him. And I grabbed him, slammed him into the wall, and just basically, had a massive go at him. He then, like, just laughed at me and pretended to hit me. So then I just hit him. Like, and then obviously, again, I don't regret what I did there, but it put me into a really bad place. But then off go on.
No, carry on, mate. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, then off the back of that, obviously that's where it really turned rotten for me. Then, I then went out around town, met a few guys that I know that are local to the area that are not in the army, and then I took drugs, partied all night, stayed out, and just literally like swallowed my life up in one night. And yeah, wow. it all came tumbling down.
That's quite a story there, Dean. But I suppose any type of bullying, but particularly when it's from someone who's senior as well, makes it even more complicated and probably even worse, because at least if it was, like a fellow trooper or a fellow colleague or something like that, it's something that you can try and address through different avenues and stuff. But when it's someone who's meant to be in charge who's doing it, I suppose it makes it even worse. But, what's happened at the end of the day, we've all got a boiling point, haven't we? And that's what's obviously happened. So, no, I can totally understand.
So I think you just feel trapped in that situation. Especially when it's someone that, because at the end of the day, if you've got a bigger rank than me in the army, I respect you. That's it. That, whether I personally respect you is a different thing, but you have to respect them. And it was just that feeling of being trapped. Like, somebody that should be helping me rehabilitate is actually putting a wall in front of me as such.
Yeah, I know that you said that you've had struggles with depression and anxiety sort of throughout your life. At that point, how was that making you feel? Was your anxiety levels quite high, or were you just depressed, or how were you feeling at that point, within yourself when all this was happening?
To be honest, I'll be honest, I didn't really witness that sort of thing till later on. So at that point, I was still, looking back, I was depressed. There's no two ways about it. Like that, few months within my injury sort of period, everything was slowly going down. And it's not to badmouth the army, because I know it's very hard for them to understand everybody's emotions, but there definitely should be more support. Like, that's one thing I will say. Like, there's definitely not enough support in the army, and my mind was going down and down and down. I felt weak, I felt useless, I felt like I didn't want to be there and everything, and it's all because of the situation I was going through. The support wasn't there. Like I say, my NCO wasn't supporting at all, and it's just hard. Like, you're in a bad place. So yeah, I was depressed, definitely. I didn't really understand anxiety and stuff like that then. Maybe I felt it, but I didn't sort of understand it as much. But yeah, I just felt like I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to move. I didn't want to go for breakfast, and do you know what I mean? And it just started to become, obviously the army is one of the biggest routine things you'll probably do. Yeah, I just didn't want to stick to the routines of anything, and I just didn't want to be myself. And I think that's why I had that massive outburst. And yeah, like, I'd never took drugs before. Like, do you know what I mean? It was something that prior to then, anyway, it's not something I'd done often, and it was something that I just wanted an out.
Yeah, like a release.
Yeah, but no, I mean, when I came back onto camp, I then got, because I went AWOL for a day or so, and then I came back onto camp. I then got straight, sent straight to the guard room. They tested me, and then I was positive for drugs. So this is the thing. I then got kicked out for drugs, but the thing that the really, really hard pill I had to swallow then is that's what I then got labelled as, which it's true. I can't say it's not, but at the end of the day, it was just the unfortunate chain of events.
But there was definitely more to it than that. So I can understand your frustration there. That must have been like super, super tough. So there's two things that I took from what you've just been saying as well. is that this is one of the reasons why I set up the podcast, was because in my opinion, I mean, obviously I've not been in the army, but I know that in general, from what I've seen in a lot of types of workplaces in society in general, there's not enough support for males in terms of mental health, and probably females in some aspects as well. So that's something that definitely needs to improve. I think it is improving to an extent, but I'm not sure how it is in the army. Maybe it is improving a little bit there as well. But there's nothing worse when you're feeling terrible and you can't even talk about it because you're worried that everyone might think that you're a pussy or something like that. Because that's how a man thinks, especially in a macho environment like that, isn't it? And then there was another thing as well that I wanted to mention as well, is that you were saying there that when you're depressed, I think one of the most important things that you can point out to someone that's not been depressed before is when you are depressed, you don't actually know you're depressed, do you? It's not like you sit there and think, right, I'm depressed, so I need to go and deal with this. You just fall into this sort of hole of where everything just is going wrong, but you don't necessarily know you're depressed, so it can be really hard to actually get up and deal with it, can it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously, like touching on to that, something that I always say to the guys I talk to, getting depressed is like getting fat, right? One day you're looking good in the mirror, you've just been on holiday, blah, blah, whatever. You slowly put weight on, but it's your body, so you don't see it. And you don't look in every day and go, shit, I look bigger today, because that's not how it works. But two or 3 months down the line, you realize when you literally like, fuck, I'm out of breath, put my shoelaces on, do my shoelaces up. And that's when it hits you. And I think, if I'm right to say, I feel like that's what depression is like. You start to live with it, you put up with it, you feel like you deserve it, you go through all these emotions of thinking why you're there, and then all of a sudden one day, like, I've had enough. And that's when you realize, and then you go, right, I'm depressed.
And it shows how powerful the brain is as well, doesn't it? Because like you say, literally one day you could be feeling like good, and then the next day you could be feeling terrible. So one day when you look in the mirror, you think, yeah, you look great. And the next day you look in the mirror, you look terrible. When in fact, you probably look the same as you did, but the perception in the mind is what has the difference there, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. But I think as well, like something that, I try not remind myself to help other people to remember as well often is we don't want to fall into that victim mindset, because again, I think it's, I guess for a listener of this that may be struggling, this is a lot to ask. But you've got to be careful that you don't be one extreme or the other. And that's where the balance comes into it, right? Because at the end of the day, if you become like drastically depressed, you're not going to live a good life, right? You're not going to succeed in anything, and you're going to feel like you're always failing, etc. But at the same time, if you feel like you're complete the opposite end, where everything's another person's reason, or do you know what I mean? You're still in this depressed state, but it's not because of depression. It's because I've got bad luck. It's because it's somebody else's fault. It's because, do you know what I mean? All these different emotions and thoughts, you're then in a really bad way in a different aspect. So I think people have to try and get that balance of trying to not say that everything is depressed, because people use the word depressed too often. Like, let's be honest, it's used too often. And I mean, nowadays, mental health is overused. It's, it's definitely present. It's definitely there. It's definitely something people need to talk about 100%. But you have to be careful that you don't take yourself that direction of saying, I am mentally ill. Because you become a victim, and that's the unfortunate thing. And that's where I think it's important to try and get that balance of understanding about it, but actually actioning things and putting things in place so you don't slip either way.
Do you know what? I love that point. I really love that point, because I've often seen this, and I've been there myself with my own mental health struggles, where I've slipped into this mode where I'm literally blaming everything that's happening around me for the way that I feel. Now, that's not to say that you can't be depressed and, you've got a real problem or something like that. But I think labeling and framing and perceiving is really, really important. And I think people underestimate it. So many people still live in this, situation where they think, well, this happened, so that's the reason I feel like this. But really, if you can see things as a challenge rather than problems, like things that are going on in your life that are not great, like, as I'm sure that are happening at the moment with coronavirus and all the pandemic and stuff, there's a lot of hard times going on, but there's also a lot of positives that can come out of negative situations as well, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. The thing is, like, something me and my missus always talk about is she calls me a pussycat sometimes, and then other times she'll call me a lion. And it's important to have your pussycat times, and it's
Yeah,
important to have your lion times, but you always got to remember that you have that lion in you. And that's something that, something that I do within my strength academy is I teach the guys a lot of mindset stuff, because I want people to understand that everybody has that inner lion in their own way, shape, or form. They've just got to find it. And it's, it's something that you can build over time and you can work on. And it's something that will stop you being the victim. Because at the end of the day, nobody really wants to be the victim, but sometimes people slip into that victim mentality. And before you know it, everything is somebody else's fault, and they don't take accountability. Yeah, exactly. They don't take it for themselves, do they?
yeah. Do you know, I absolutely love that you started talking about all this sort of thing, because this is something I think so key, especially in the situation that we're all in at the moment, is you can fall into a victim mentality, and that itself can become addictive as well. This is what people don't realize. You can become addicted to that emotion of, oh, this is happening to me. And you start living this story in your head like, oh, this is all going wrong for me, and why does this happen to me? And then you start drinking heavily, and this is how you see people who end up as alcoholics, because they've not been able to deal with their emotions. So I'm not judging them, by the way. I'm just trying to explain the process of how I see it and what I think happens to people. And I think that we all face adversity, but it's really how we deal with it. And like you say, if you've got the heart of a lion and you think of yourself that way, you might be much better off than if you're someone who thinks, well, shit happened to me, so I'm fucked. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. It's true. And the thing is, obviously, the success lies within all those attitudes, because you might meet someone else that inspires you that is completely like, nah, fuck this. It's not, there's no such thing as being a pussy, this, that, and the other. And you know what? Those people are successful. But I think you've got to be in tune with what fits with you, because I know for me, I'm a very emotional person. As much as people think I'm a big hard man, this, that, and the other, whatever, my closest people know that, I most likely will cry at somebody else's funeral. Like, do you know what I mean? At the end of the day, I'm a very emotional person. I feel emotion very, easily. And I think, like I say, it's trying to get that balance between understanding what's going to work with you. Like, the way you speak to somebody else is not the way that will fit with them if it fits with you. It's not always the case. And you have to try and adapt for each individual person, don't you? It's like with the guys I work with, I know who to tell to man up, and I know who to tell not to man up. Like, I know that term's quite, a harsh way of looking at things, because I also, on another sentence, I've also said that you shouldn't say that to people, because at the end of the day, what's a man? Do you know what I mean? It's, it means nothing. But at the same time, it's something that, people will respond to. Some people respond to that, just fucking get on with it sort of attitude.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think there's nothing wrong also as well with, I mean, obviously when we set up this podcast, it was a bit like, we wanted to encourage people to talk, but we also didn't want to encourage people not to, just to sort of give up and be a victim either. That's not what it's about. It's about finding ways to, find your strength. And that's why we want guys like you on here to talk about that sort of thing, And I think it's important that there's nothing wrong with manning up sometimes as well, because sometimes that's also what we need, when we are a bit down on ourselves. Sometimes we just need to man up. And there's nothing wrong with the term man up, I don't think. But what I think is wrong with it sometimes is to use it in every single situation. And like you just said there, you use them in certain situations. And I think that's a cool idea as well. Yeah, so I know that when you come out of the army, you really hit the gym hard. Is that right? To deal with like the emotions of how you were feeling. So did you hit the gym hard when you come out to deal with everything as well and block things out?
Yeah, to be honest, this is where slowly the process begun for me in becoming this strong person, because, I went through a good, I think it was 6 months where I was living with my parents. I didn't want to move out my bedroom. I remember moving my bedroom around like 4 times a week or something to try and make myself feel better. Like when you're young and like, I don't know. I was just like, I'd come out of the army. I was still young in my head, if you like, because I'd sort of like, not fully rebuilt myself back up after falling off this big building as such. And, I then went through a stage of feeling really oppressed. I then went through stages of, I don't know, looking at loads of YouTube stuff and trying to get inspired and, different things. Talking to people didn't used to help, because I wasn't ready to talk to people. I'd seen various counselors and I just literally felt like I may as well, talk to myself. And then I went and joined a job at Tesco's on security. And it's funny because when I look back at that, it's a very manly, masculine job, right? To be a security guard. And, I was reasonably young, fit and strong and everything out of the army, but still I was pretty young and I didn't really understand things properly. So I know now, but looking back, I was there to prove a point that I was powerful. And
Yeah.
maybe I needed that because at the end of the day, maybe I needed some authority, some power, some responsibility and stuff. But at the same time, it didn't really help my situation as much because I'd become back to this person again that was Mr. Hardman standing on a door.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like it was a funny one because again, like anything I do, I give it 110%. And like we as a team, I built a team at our local Tesco's, like to be insane. Like we really were working like an awesome team, and we were catching people every single day, and we was literally on the top of the leaderboard for the like the Tesco's sort of like records and stuff, and we was loving it, and we proper got into it, and I become like I had a really good responsibility and everything, but in the background I didn't want to be that. I didn't want to do that. I was just it was like a front. So I was training all the time, and I was then obsessed with just trying to put size on and get bigger because in the army you can't really grow much because you're running all the time and malnutrition as such.
Yeah.
But yeah, I then got into bodybuilding a lot, and that's I guess where my journey started because in the gym I just felt like I was something. I was somebody. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. I love the gym, and to be honest, at the moment, it's the worst. The worst part of coronavirus for me is the gym being closed. To be honest, but it's really difficult, because
I think it is for a lot of people now.
It is, isn't it? I hope they open them soon, but yeah, that's another story. But definitely makes you feel better when you get into that routine at the gym and you're feeling good and you're eating well. It does make you feel better. But what I take from what you just said there as well, so you're doing a pretty good job as a security guard there, and also you're feeling manly as such and stuff, doing what you're doing. But also, I suppose you're only ticking a few boxes by doing that, aren't you? There's still something missing there. So that's the impression I'm getting. So I know that you mentioned previously that after the security job, did you start your own outdoor fitness boot camp business? Is that what happened at that point?
Yeah, so it was literally like, very much a homeboy at this point. Like Tesco's was a stone throw. And then another stone throw, a different direction, was where I set up a boot camp on a field. And yeah, I went down the army boot camp theme sort of thing. I used to wear my army rig, and people love that, like especially locals and stuff. And that it's one of the things, isn't it, that the army has as a stigma that being beasted as such by somebody in the army, it's you get the treatment of what they get, sort of thing. So yeah, no,
Yeah.
it went really well, and I started to do that at night times when I wasn't working, and then I started doing morning sessions. And literally, like, I just took over Leicestershire with boot camps. Like, it was like one of the biggest boot camps in Leicestershire. And I remember, like, once we had like 100 and some, I think it was 100 or just under 100 people, like on a field. Like, it was insane. Like, obviously, that was when I didn't really understand business models and stuff. So, then I started splitting them down into time slots, and it started to get busy and took over. And I guess I then felt again like I was pursuing something that I'm interested in and that I can continue. And that's where that really started for me.
Well, that's awesome. And just for listeners as well, I don't know if anyone listening has been to one of those army boot camp things, but I've been to one of them, and I like to think that I can keep up quite well. But that killed me. I've done a couple of those sessions because I went and I was trying to keep up with the people that go all the time, and it literally nearly killed me. It was hard. But yeah, it's totally a challenge for sure. So it sounds like by that point then it's actually getting a lot better for you. So you're doing something that you more want to be doing that resonates with you. So you're helping people. So when you're seeing people turning up, I take it you had a few customers or people that came to the events where they're not in great shape and they got into good shape. And did you realise at that point that that's something that is an enjoyment factor when you see it, you're actually changing someone's life?
Yeah, and yeah, no, exactly. Like, and I think like the big thing is, one of the most powerful things I always say is helping others helps you. Like, because there's nothing better than me telling you to make sure you got to put 6:30, go for a walk, put your podcast on, all these things. And then I'm like, shit, I've just told Tom to do that now, so I've got to do it. Like,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? That's how my mind works. And I think it does for a lot of people. So it's, I like to be true to people as well. And I like to be like, look, I'm in this with you. I'm not the pro. I'm not at the top of the hill looking down. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm with you on this. So for me, it's a bit like, I enjoyed that. And I like to help people move forward. And, because I was still in a partially bad place, shall we say, I was giving myself that reason to believe in myself as well. And then, when people started to lose weight, feel good, get confident, they shouted about me. Social media, obviously, even back then, it was really powerful. And it was like, people were talking about talk about my boot camp on social media, sharing things. I was getting more inquiries, and I'd never experienced self-employment before. So this was like the start of a big journey for me. And I was like, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, and it sounded like it scaled quite quickly as well. That's an important point I wanted to touch on as well. You're saying there about helping people. So one thing that I've observed in life is sometimes you have people where they literally just put everyone else first and then they get trodden all over, don't they? So I think one of the most important thing I'd say is to put yourself first and then help others, isn't it? It's like, you're on an aeroplane and they say, if the mask come down, put your own mask on first and then help others. I think that's really important, isn't it? Because some people take it to an extreme where literally they're just trying to help other people all the time and they're not looked after their own situation. So, and they become sad in themselves, don't they? So it's important to get yourself, to the point like yourself has, and then start helping people. And then you can really reap the rewards of helping others, can't you?
Yeah, no, you know what? I like that because I think it's something that so often, like you say, will happen where, people love to do things for others, right? You get some people. I mean, I've got, one of the girls that works for me. She will do anything for me, and she will sometimes forget to breathe. Do you know what I mean? You love those people, but at the same time, you need to check in with them to like, are you eating? Are you sleeping? Do you know? And that's the thing. It's at the end of the day, exactly like what you say about the mask on the airplane. Like, if you don't put yours on quick enough, you're not going to live to tell anything. So and I think the best way to look at that, because some people will struggle. The people that are the helpers and that like to help other people first will struggle to think, but I like to do that, so that's what I like to do. And if I like to do it, that's how I'll do it. That's fine. But when shit hits the fan in a few months' time, when you've not got your ducks in line, or however you want to put it, then you'll realize why we say this. And that is the thing. If you can get the mentality to lead by example, then you will be a lot more successful. You have to lead by the example as opposed to just telling the example. I think that's a huge part of it.
100%. And also that's like, if you're a manager as well, there's a difference between a manager and a leader, isn't there? Sometimes you get people that just back orders, or people that lead by example. And we all know who the one is that gets a lot more respect, don't you? So the person who leads by example and wants to help people is the person that always is going to get a much more respect. So
well, I used to actually really struggle with that, because I've always been a natural leader, I guess, because I've always been the person that I will show you how to do the job and do the job with you, as opposed to just tell you how to do the job. But then I went through a bit of a weird stage quite some time back where I was struggling to get that transition, and I took staff on, because after the boot camp, I then moved inside into a gym because the weather was just killing my business off, basically. But it got me into a position where I was then like, right, I need to now bossing people around. I need to now boss people around and tell them what to do. And it wasn't me, and it was a bit like, I don't want to do this. So, but then what you find yourself doing, which I battled with for a while, was I was then doing everything and no one was doing anything because I was doing it. So then it's like, it's a battle.
No, it most certainly is. So I know that you own a gym now as well, don't you, Dean? So tell us how you got from the boot camp, the outdoor boot camp. I know you said you brought it inside, but how did you get to the point where you own your own gym as well?
So literally the weather was something that the more I become a civvy, if you like. So I had this mentality of, if it rains, snows, sleets, whatever, we're outside. But what happens, obviously, in life, people start, not turning up, can't make it because my son's ill or something. It's like, no, it's raining. And it started to get to me. Obviously, it affected my business financially and everything as well. So I wanted to leave Tesco's, and I was a little bit like, look, I need to make sure I'm earning enough money to be able to leave Tesco. And I did a deal with myself where I took an hour off a week, because I was on a flexi contract anyway. And as long as the door was covered and security was manned or whatever, I just took an hour off every week until I didn't work for Tesco's anymore. And in that time, I just slowly built up my business. So I started doing personal training at the local territorial army. Met the guys down there, asked them if I could rent their room off them. I was doing some personal training down there, so I was like, started to earn £30 an hour, so it was a decent wage. I then started to work in Derby, which was about half an hour away from where I live now, and I started to build a client base up over there. And to be honest, I moved around 3 different gyms in the matter of like 2 years, and I just learned so much about how not to run a gym.
Yeah.
I was literally like just wound up all the time. I mean, one gym was ridiculously expensive. It was DW. It was £50 a month. There was about 20 personal trainers. And I felt sorry for people, because every single personal trainer that came through the door they were just thrown into a big pond. And it was just like, they're all young lads out of college. Luckily, I was really cocky and confident, and I literally built myself up. But for the lads who didn't, they just literally walked in and walked straight back out, because they couldn't handle that whole mentality of self-business. So, I just took a lot of things that I didn't like about that gym. I went to another gym and made it really, really successful there. I ended up having to eventually give clients away, because obviously I used to sell my clients to people, because obviously I took on a lot. And then I just looked at everything of how I ran in all those different gyms and thought, I can run this so much better.
Yeah.
So I looked for a premises in Loughborough. I found premises, and I'm still in the same one now. Luckily it served as well all the way through. So 2014 is when I opened it, and I basically called it Functional Fitness. So it was an indoor boot camp with more equipment, if you like, as a nutshell. And that's where I sort of made it Functional Fitness, because of the equipment we used. I basically just took everything that I had outside indoor, and we started to build an actual membership, as opposed to just to turn up at the park and train. We started to then have Facebook groups and everything, so people felt part of a community, as opposed to just turn up at a park one night and then going home.
That's awesome. And I think as well, you said about a community there as well. You do get gyms where it's not much of a community. And it's just somewhere you go and work out. And if there is a sort of animosity in the air, a bit of tension in the air. So it's nice when you go to a gym. Like my gym I go to in Northampton's nice. And it's just, it is a community, and everyone just gets on with it, and everyone's polite to each other. And it's nice to have a gym like that, isn't it? And I think the Facebook groups are a good idea as well, to keep everyone together, and you can have like certain events and stuff. So how have you found, obviously with COVID and stuff, having to shut the gym and stuff, how have you found that you've had to adapt and change things and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, to be honest, it's been huge, man. We've gone from Functional Fitness, we changed to Strong Lean Fit around 2016 maybe. I changed the name simply because I changed the direction I was going with stuff, and we started to bring more barbells in and stuff like that. So I changed the name again. Fast forward to now, we've had to change completely again, which a few reasons really. Like, COVID made me think a lot. I think it has a lot of people, hasn't it? Like, it's made you reevaluate your life and the things you do, etc. And for me, in a nutshell, like I say, I'm a professional athlete. I want to get to the top in strongman. I can't get to the top in strongman if I'm allowing my business to still take control of me. Plus allow my business to be different from me. And what I mean by that is I'm true strength. I don't care what I look like. Now, I say that with a pinch of salt, because obviously we all do. Like, none of us want to take a clothes off and look crap and go, I'm happy. But
cool.
you know what I'm saying? It's not my focus. My focus is to be strong and fit. And the gym was still about fat loss. Although the name was Strong Lean Fit, it was still about fat loss. And so basically COVID has taught me to basically drop everything, just drop everything I did and rebuild what I want. and it's turned out a massive success that we've done that so far. I've got an online academy that I coach strength athletes. I've got like just under 30 people on that, and they pay for me personally for my time. And then the gym now is going to be a baby model of that. So basically, it's going to be a fob on the door. They're going to let themselves in, and I will coach them online in the gym. So it's quite a big switch now compared to what we used to be.
Ah, that's awesome. And if anyone listening wants to get involved in that, I'll provide all the links and information in the podcast description as well. So,
thank you, man.
Dean, I know, no problem at all, Dean. So I know that you've competed in strongman both nationally and internationally. Is that right? Could you give us a bit more information about that and how you found that impacts your life and stuff like that?
Yeah. So, without completely boring you with the backstory of it, but I've basically done all the disciplines you can do in the strength industry. I'm pretty sure, other than I don't know, sumo wrestling or something. But I've done everything you can do, and for me, like nothing has. It sounds really soppy what I'm going to say now, but nothing has hit me like strongman has. And what I mean by that is there's many aspects of it. One, the community. Like no matter who you are, you want every strongman to do well, because I think it's because the level of respect you have for them, that you understand what they're going through to get to that level.
Yeah.
So the community is just like second to none. Like, I mean, I know CrossFit are quite well known for their community stuff as well. But yeah, I mean, but in regards to sort of like the actual sport itself, strongman, in my opinion, there's nothing as hard as it. Like, I don't care what anyone says, even the CrossFit people who want to have a little bit of banter about it. Like, strongman are stronger and harder, and it is what it is. And it's one of them things where, not to badmouth bodybuilding, but bodybuilding, you go on stage and you get judged for what you look like. Now, you're getting judged by different people for what you look like. So then when they come off stage and they go and cry because they didn't win, it's a very sort of like, it's a tough way to judge someone, isn't it? But where I'm trying to go with this, in strongman, if you don't lift the weight, you don't lift the weight. It's as simple as that. So there is no two ways about it. Like, where you're going with it. And that's something that I've just fell in love with, because like, you put all the hard work in behind the scenes, and you either make it or you don't, and it's as simple as that. So I've been through all the ranks in England, like from Midlands to England's to Britain's, Europe's, and then obviously last year, or 2019, I competed in World's Strongest Man, and I came 9th in the under 90. So yeah, that was pretty cool, because obviously it was my first year doing it, and I came top 10. Like, to come top 10 in your first year, I think it's pretty cool.
That's pretty fucking awesome. So congratulations for that. That's really, really good. So I believe you said that you've got an online program that you're doing at the moment as well. What have you got any other plans for the future you can tell us about? Anything else, or are you just focusing on your online program at the moment?
Yeah, to be honest, I've got a huge one at the moment, which is, I won't say a black cloud as a negative thing, but it's a big cloud above my head at the minute. But yeah, so following on from sort of like what I do with the gym, in-person stuff, and the online stuff, which is obviously specific, but it's just not in person. I'm building a platform at the minute, which we're actually launching on the 1st of March, so we're only a few weeks away. But it's basically called Strength in Your Pocket, where I want to hit everybody in the world with this, because the reason I'm building this is because it's something that is definitely missing. There's something that there is no such thing in the strongman world for it. And it's basically having a strength coach in your pocket, okay, on your phone, on an app, where you can learn about, injuries. You can learn about training. You can print training programs off and follow them. There's mindset stuff on there. There's nutrition stuff on there. There's supplement stuff on there. There's basically everything you need to learn to become a successful athlete. And there's nothing around like it. I've got my whole team now onto this. So I've got Ella McChrystal. I think you know Ella.
I do know Ella, yeah.
I've got a feeling, yeah, you're the same area. So she's my mindset coach. She's a part of it, and it's a pleasure to have her a part of it, because I look up to her so much.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
She knows this, but she's the only person that has made me feel me, like, without sounding too soppy. Like, every person that I've spoke to before in counselling, she doesn't like to be called a counsellor because she's not, but everyone that I've spoke to in counselling have always just listened to me and never helped me fix things, whereas she, is really connected. And yeah, so she's a part of it. I've got Aaron, who is he's Mofo Mechanics. He's basically my rehabilitation coach, and like any injuries I get, I go to him. He's awesome. He's like the best in the country. I've then got Uris, who's another guy who does nutrition and supplements and everything. So, like between us all, and obviously I do the coaching, we have got everything you need to be a successful athlete. And that's exactly what the site's for. It's £17 a month. And if you were to plug that onto your normal gym membership, it's far cheaper than a personal trainer, and you've got everything you need.
That sounds really awesome. So what will that contain then? Will there be videos and content and stuff like that? How will there be presentations? How will that work?
Yeah, so there's going to be all sorts of, there's loads of different like video contents and educational stuff. There's also then going to be processes of like working yourself through courses and things. So for example, like the nutrition one, like the whole point of it is it wants to be a DIY site. So, you're going to go on there to learn how to do it yourself. And that's the whole point of that, because we want people to learn it themselves. We want people to be self-accountable. And at the end of the day, I'm sure you know this anyway, but the more you learn yourself, the more you put it into action. Like if I tell you to eat X, Y, Z, if you don't understand why you're doing it, you probably don't care then. And that's the difference with it. So we want to educate people so they understand it, and then they have a belief behind it so they can then pursue it for longer. So yeah, it's going to have everything in there that, and each one of us have got our own section that we're building the content for. There's going to be videos, text, print-offs, worksheets, everything.
Oh, it sounds really good. And it sounds like the one-stop shop, because when you look around for a lot of courses and stuff, it's usually like one aspect gets covered, like your strength training and then your psychological side of things. So it's really cool. Sounds like a tailored custom plan for the whole spectrum. So it sounds really, really good. Really, really positive stuff, mate. So
thank you, man.
One thing I wanted to start... Sorry, let me say that again. One thing I wanted to mention then, Dean, was I know you've had depression and anxiety at different points throughout your life. So do you still have days where you wake up and you feel really bad? And if you do, how do you deal with them?
Yeah, 3 days ago.
Okay. Tell us how that came about.
As often as that. Something I didn't mention earlier, like when I was going through, obviously, like, seeing different people and stuff, went to doctors. I actually got told I've got cyclothymia, which is mild version of bipolar. And it's something that I don't often talk about, that because at the end of the day, to me, it's a label. It means nothing. And if you actually read into cyclothymia anyway, it's such a low level of bipolar that the fix is working on your mind. So to me, it's something that you should do every day anyway. Especially for somebody who is more sensitive to it and that needs it, i.e. myself. So yeah, so like, like when I have days like that, I just have to, right behind the camera and my laptop here, I've got on my wall like my priority list for my days. So every day I've got things listed out, and in red are the things that I need to get done. So, when I'm feeling really bad, I just refer to things like this, whereas, I'll make sure I do the things I need to do, and then the rest is a bonus. It's like this week coming up. I won't go into massive detail of it, but I've got something happening on Thursday, which is really quite stressful. And so this week I've pulled everything back. I'm not training tonight because it's my daughter's birthday. I'm just trying to be clever on things. And that's something I think that, that people don't do enough of. And I know I don't do enough of it, if I'm honest. Like, I'll still expect the ultimate, because I think something that we do naturally as human, especially people that are, I humbly say it, but are successful, you then see your success as something that should be normal.
Yeah.
And I think when you have bad days, you go, shit, I've slipped. I'm not where I should be. Actually, It's like, hold on a minute. And again, I humbly say this, but you've dropped, but you're well ahead of a lot of other people. And not that it's about a competition, but my point is, for me, I'm a very competitive person. It's like, take the strongman, for example. If I'm not training tonight, I'll be eating my head away thinking every Tuesday I train. Do you know what I'm saying? And you can put this pressure on yourself, but I've said to myself, this week I'm having not a week off, because I don't work well with a week off, but I'm just taming it down for the week. And I think that's something that's powerful, that, that people can take on board, and it will help them a lot.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing that with us as well, because I think a lot of people, when they look at people like yourself who are obviously successful, and they do think that, oh, do these people today, they mustn't have bad days then. So when they have a bad day, they think, oh, I shouldn't be having this, I shouldn't be feeling like this, you know, when in reality, we all have those days, don't we? So I think it's good to share that, definitely.
Yeah.
And it is also about having a plan as well, and trying to deal with it rather than indulging in it. You know, if you feel like that, try and not, you know, go on a massive drinking bender or something like that. Just try and have a chill, go for a run.
I think it's important to still have some touchdowns, like some checkpoints that, you know, it's like for me, I bought a sauna on the first lockdown. I put that in my garage, got my garage done up and everything. That's my little therapy room. I've got a hot tub in there and a sauna. You see, that's something that weekly I will always have, like, you know, have my time to do, because it's things like that where you have your touchdowns. Like I say, the other night when I felt crap, I went and sat in the sauna. I put some classical music on, just something just different to what I normally listen to, and I just sat there and just, you know what I mean, just had a wind down, take some time out. But yeah, you're right. I think like often people either eat, drink, take drugs, or whatever, don't they, as they're sort of out. And I think it's just about trying to be smart with yourself and thinking, look, it's fine, take time out, allow it to happen, and, you know, you'll bounce back again.
Yeah, great advice. That's great advice. So just to finish up on then, Dean, if there's someone listening who's going through a really tough time at the moment, and, you know, they're in a really bad way with everything that's going on, maybe lockdowns being tough for them, what would be your first piece of advice as to how they can start the process to get out of the crisis that they're in?
To be honest, obviously I'll try and keep this reasonably short, because there's a lot of things that I could answer for this. But I think one of the biggest things that I often teach my guys, you know, and something I do with my academy guys, if they ever want me, they know that I will book in a call with them and I'll talk to them. And something I often say to them is, always remember your why, and always remember why you're doing it. Now, for me, just to use it as a, you know, resemblance with things, but we've had no competitions this year, and it really gets to me when we don't have competitions. And it can, if I let it, it can make me think, why the hell am I training? Because I'm the type of person that trains to compete. I don't compete to train, you know, so I need them goals, I need them focuses, and they're my whys. But I have to keep telling myself that I'm training for Worlds at the end of the year. So Worlds is in November. You know, we've got to be back up and running by then, for God's sake. Like,
Hope so.
the year we've had, like, come on, man. But the thing is that I try and say to people is, try and always remember your why, and use your visionary, you know, aspect of things. So imagine that whole thing, you know, of being there and doing that thing, and, you know, vision that you've already succeeded in the things that you want, so that it can keep that fire inside. You know, like, obviously we're all going to have bad days, and you know, things don't go to plan, and we may have to change our direction in things, but you have to remember your why. And you know what, if your why isn't important enough, you know that it's not, and then you won't be able to find it. And that's the thing. And if you can't find your why, you need to dig deeper, because, you know, it's all right. Because the reason I say that is because a lot of people will say, yeah, but it's easy for you because you know what you're going for. You know, somebody that is already feeling down, low, depressed, this, that, and the other, and like, they haven't got anything. They go, yeah, but I haven't got anything that I'm focusing on. Well, then you need to make something to focus on. You know, and that's the thing. If you need to find out your why, if you haven't got a why, because then you will start to build up that motivation, and the routines will then start to, you know, be put in place. And I think that's a huge part of it, isn't it? Once you found out your why, put your routines in place, and then they're your checkpoints for yourself.
That's great advice, really powerful stuff. And I think it's important to have those goals and to understand and realise why you've got those goals, and to keep taking action to work towards them. So a really good way to finish up the podcast, Dean. So thanks for joining us, Dean. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. So yeah, it's been really, really good. So thank you very much.
No, thank you, man. It's really it was actually a nice one. I've done quite a few recently, and we got really deep into that. And I appreciate you asking the questions and listening as well.
No, that's all right, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. I really, really enjoyed it. So thanks everyone for listening. And remember, it's okay not to be okay. Thank you.